Welcome back, and thank you for staying with Morning Prime. We're still talking about gender issues. We're still in Isili, and we're still talking about gender issues affecting refugees. And with me right now is Pauline Jao, who is the project manager of Paza Sauti. She'll be telling us more about Paza Sauti and what exactly they hope to achieve from it. Good morning.
Good morning, Ashley.
Now, tell us more about Paza Sauti.
Paza Sauti is an urban women refugees program or project that is actually about telling stories of urban women refugees. Now, I normally give this very quick analogy. If people are struggling, think about the struggling. The refugees at the bottom of the pile. The urban refugee woman is even lower in the bottom of the pile. So we have two objectives. One is to hear their story, and second is to package that story in a way we can publish it. And really that's it. We build capacity, we empower them, we allow them to speak. And for many of them, it's the first time they've had an opportunity to just speak and to be heard. Yeah.
And it's interesting what you're talking about, speaking it out and, just sharing and opening up. But let's talk about the trickle-down effects that are caused by, being a refugee. How exactly do you handle that?
So we've had some of our cases where we refer to other. One of the first things we did when we came is we went out and found out who is doing what in the refugee world. So when one of our girls is having a real issue, we then look for who is the stakeholder in the refugee world that we can refer to. And because we are an organization, it's easier for us to refer them. When they go knocking on the door, it's harder for them. But when we refer them, things happen rather quickly. So that's what we do with the girls. So we're doing things like education, livelihoods, that's what we're planning, trying to get them ideas. But at the end of the day, we feel that our biggest contribution is actually getting the story heard. I don't know if you've heard the story of the ID. It's such a touching story. And so if we were able to package that into a film and tell the world about what it feels like to be in Kenya without an ID and you're an alien, that's really, for us, the real thrust of our work. Yeah.
Not just even the issue of identification, but they've equally talked about job opportunities, equal job opportunities. How best do you think they can be integrated into the community? Getting IDs, getting proper jobs, getting the same salaries as everyone else.
Yes. So this is a big advocacy campaign, actually. If you think about it, it's going to take a lot of educating Kenyans. We have 3 generations or 4 generations of Kenyans who've never been in war. We don't know what it feels like to be a refugee. Many of us think that refugees come here because they don't, something happened to them or they came for money. So it's going to take a lot of work to educate us as the host community, to be fair, to treat people with human dignity, to actually be kind, to have empathy. Think about it like this, Ashley. Just 2 months ago, you watched Ukrainians go into war, and suddenly, overnight, millions of people became refugees, just like that. It can happen to us. And so that's actually what we want to begin to talk about. And when you think about it, that voice coming from an urban refugee woman is very powerful. Yeah.
Okay, and it's interesting you talked about Ukraine. I think World Refugee Day was celebrated just 2 days ago or 3 days ago. And their theme for this year was more about safety, that it can, wherever, whoever, whenever, you need to be safe. So even as they face these challenges that they're facing, how do we keep them safe?
Ashley, can I introduce my assistant? She's actually the one who was organizing our World Refugee Day celebrations.
Okay.
So let me pull her into this conversation. Okay. She's actually going to tell you about World Refugee Day and what that meant and what the theme and how we are translating it.
Okay. Hi. What's your name?
My name is Faith Kanini Chule. Paza Sauti project assistant.
Okay, now talk to us about the World Refugee Day and how exactly you're integrating it into the project.
Thank you. World Refugee Day is a day that is designated by the United Nations, basically to celebrate or to honor the refugees. Occasionally just to build empathy and also to recognize and to understand their plight by also understanding their resilience to live in Kenya. Okay. As a Paza Sauti project, we were integrated in a campaign known as Mimi Sio Mkimbizi too, where we are advocating for safety, communication, awareness about the refugee women, basically, in Nairobi. Yes.
And apart from, you've talked about the refugee women in Nairobi, do you get in touch with them once in a while, like the entire group or majority, or it's just specifically those who are involved in this project?
For this project, we get in touch purposely with the girls.
Okay.
But in general, we are working with other refugees organizations. They are known as RLOs, refugee-led organization. We meet with them. They are working with refugees directly, where we also get to meet those refugees, both men, women, and children. But basically, for this project, we meet women and girls only.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can see that they're in groups. How often do you now come up with different groups? When do they change? After how long are they in the project?
For this project, Paza Sauti, it's supposed to be a one-year project with these girls. Basically, it's divided into 4 sessions. That is the recruitment, the training of the creative storytelling, the production of the movie, and then the dissemination period. For the girls, those who will not feel that they do not have enough confidence to continue after the creative storytelling, they will exit. Those who will feel that I'm free, I'm okay, I can do the movie, they are free to continue till the dissemination. But those who stopped during the creative storytelling will also be integrated during the dissemination period, so that they can also now Paza Sauti, send the message, share the message in all social medias and in their communities as well.
How many groups have you had so far?
We have had, this is our first year, so this is our first group, but we are supposed to have other 2 groups.
Coming after now the first group.
Yes.
Okay, talk to us about now the activities that take place when they meet. How often do they meet?
The girls, when the project started, the girls we were supposed to meet the girls 2 times a week, but before we were training them on psychosocial support for 3 days, which takes 3 days. When they are starting, we train them on psychosocial support, which basically deals with their trauma and their flights, to make them feel comfortable before the training starts. Then from then, that we have been, this is our 6th class, right, if I'm not wrong. We have had 6 classes twice a week, which is supposed to be 10 days in 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. So even as we wind this up, of course, you interact with them every single day. So you know the challenges that they face every single day. What do you think needs to be addressed, not just here or society, but even when it comes to laws?
Thank you for the question.
It's a hard one, yeah?
It's a hard one. But basically, I don't want to be biased, but generally, the refugee need to be heard. They need to be listened, and they need to be included in the decision-making tables. So, because we can't talk of refugees without them, we can't make policies pertaining them without them. But once we include them, we will understand them. They will understand these laws. They will understand the reason as to why the processes take long for them to get the ID. But if they are not around the table and people are making the policies, the laws pertaining them, that's then.
Okay.
They are made to feel like neglected, and even as a nation, we are not applying empathy, which is being advocated by UN.
Of course, even as we talk about laws, there are challenges that these ladies face, harassment, as they had mentioned earlier on. How can we assist that, and how exactly, as Paza Sauti, are you trying to assist that? Because they come to you for help.
Thank you for the question. There are a few issues that the refugee women have really spoken about. When it comes to security and protection, most of them have expressed themselves and talked about the police brutality or the police harassment in their houses, in their safe houses where they live. And that is one of the major things that Paza Sauti project aims during the production, that we will get to tell about how hard it is for you being a refugee and you are being harassed by the police or by the state. So that is one thing that we're still building their resilience and their ability to tell the story, so that once we are doing the the medium length movie, it will be, the story will be there. And our story will not only be addressing the host community, we'll also address the state, and also we'll also address the world about the refugees. Okay. The second thing that I've talked basically is about education. Simply because they are not registered in Kenya, it's hard for them to go to school or to access education, and when we look at the policies in Kenya, is that every child who is below the age of 18 years should be in school. They are children, they are youths, they need to be in school, but they are not in school. So basically that is another component of Paza Sauti towards the end of the project, where we are aiming that we are going to get that story and we are going to say it, and we are going to be brave enough to speak about it, and the nation will know, the state will know that even refugee children are children and they need to access education. Yeah. On matters of health, that is another sensitive area where these refugees women have really talked about, because you can imagine a pregnant woman when you go to an hospital to give birth, you cannot give birth. You have to go with a Kenyan who is standing as your sister, and you'll give birth with their NHIF. And it's hard, because not every Kenyan will have empathy. Not everyone will have empathy. But as women, we have that nurturing nature. We'll still give them. They are still struggling. Their children cannot access medication still, because they are refugees. They lack the ID, they lack the NHIF card. And the last one is about economic empowerment. When we talk about economic growth, these refugees, they have the ability, they have the knowledge, they have the resources, they have the capacity to build businesses, but they cannot, because they do not have the licenses to operate in Nairobi. Whenever they start something, Kanjo will come and their businesses will have to go. But we have one of our participants, she had begun a very good job of selling shoes somewhere in the city, but she no longer operates because she do not have the license, and everything was just taken away. And that is money that she had spent sleepless nights before she got the money, knocking doors, washing for people clothes, getting that 150, building that capital, and then in a week your business is done. So that is another component, that at the end of this project, by 1 year, we want to build that story and call it a story of brave, and tell the world, see, the refugees they have the ability, they have the knowledge, they have the wisdom, and they are resourceful. Okay. We are not supposed to neglect them, but also we're supposed to integrate them. Okay,
thank you so much. Pauline, just coming back to you, of course, from what she's mentioned, the fact that at this day and age, we're seeing people being harassed, biased, just because they're from a different country. Really, it is sad. But then if you look at what needs to be done, yes, we can talk about policies, we can talk about the laws, but let's come back down to the societal level. What can you and I do? Our viewer who's watching, what can they do?
Yeah. We want to talk to the host community. Yeah. Like every host, actually, when I come to your home, a host is somebody who must understand the person who the guest. So many of us don't see refugees as guests. Many of us think that refugees we call them foreigners, and we think, and we have so many biases. We say things like wakona pesa, wanapatiwa pesa na UNHCR, wanapata dollar. I don't know. We have all kinds of biases, and we stigmatize them. So you can imagine, if I'm a guest in your home and I stigmatize, you are stigmatized, how difficult it is. I am convinced that Kenyans go through the same harassment, but it is more difficult for the refugee because they don't have papers. So for us as hosts, we need to begin to ask, why don't our refugees have papers? Who is responsible? Who is it who is meant to fast track these papers? Because if it was us, we would be shouting from the rooftops, we don't have IDs. But for them, we don't care. So for us as host community, first of all, we need to realize our role. We are hosting people. And so we need to act like hosts. These people do not come here, refugees don't come here because they are on holiday. They don't come here to take away from us. Actually, guess what? They add value. So for us to advocate for them to get IDs, for us to advocate for them to get education, get health, is actually for our own good. Because they then stop becoming a liability and they actually then start becoming a resource for our country. Yeah. Okay. So, Ashley, can you believe that many refugees cannot even access M-Pesa? So because they can't access M-Pesa, they're not able to do business. They cannot, there are basic things that I had never thought about. Before I walked into this project and I listened to the stories, I never knew that somebody cannot get M-Pesa. Now, think about how many M-Pesa transactions you do in a day.
I actually survive on M-Pesa, so it can be really difficult. Can
you imagine if you cannot get M-Pesa and you cannot send M-Pesa? Yeah. Meaning, nobody can send you money. Even that money you are saying is being sent from abroad. How will you get it? So even if the money is sent, it's sent through somebody, and that somebody takes a huge cut of that money. If we open a business with you, Ashley, I'm a refugee and you're a Kenyan, it's very easy for you to defraud me. Yeah. Very easy, because I have no papers. I cannot even go to the police. I cannot go to a court of law. So I think as Kenyans, we really do need to begin thinking about refugees as a resource and not a liability. Okay. It's a change of attitude. And I think once we switch on that, then everything else just becomes secondary. Yeah. Okay.
I want us to talk about this project specifically for those who are watching and maybe they know someone who needs help. Mm-hmm. How exactly can they get into it?
So we recruit this cohort. We go with them to the end of the year. Okay. And then next year, January, we'll be recruiting a new cohort. Please look out for go to our pages, Paza Sauti. You will find information about us, number one, our contact, our telephone numbers. Number two, please look out for when we are recruiting volunteers and when we are recruiting for we call them wanafunzi or our jewels. When we are recruiting for our jewels, look out for them so that you apply. We actually, we recruit very openly. You come for an interview, and if you pass, you pass. Okay. Unfortunately, we are only up to now able to take only 15 for every cohort. Okay. So it's very competitive. Okay. Yeah, it's quite competitive. But we are happy with what we are doing. We are excited. I am very excited about the progress of the girls. We've only been here for 2 months, and I love the confidence. I love that they're able to speak. They're able to articulate very clearly. And I think you are actually just accept you're surprised at the level of confidence and even communication skills that you found on the ground.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to talk about one thing, which is insecurities. Yeah. We even heard from a mother who's saying she's afraid that one day her girl will not accept, the fact that part of her is from this and part of her is from this. Let's talk about that, because they will be integrated into communities. They will have families of their own. But how do we ensure that this stops with them?
When you think about it, again, let me go back to stigma, discrimination. If I'm discriminated, then the minute I'm discriminated, I begin to feel my self-esteem suffers, my self-worth suffers, not only in other people's eyes, but also in my own eyes. Say I am a Rwandese or I'm a Congolese and I get married to a Kenyan. It's very difficult for me because first of all, I feel I've been done a favor to be married to a Kenyan, for me to teach language, for me to teach my culture, for me to be able to tell that child, you are a half Congolese and you are half Kenyan. Now remember, if I'm half Congolese or I'm half Rwandese, it means I'm already disadvantaged. My child is growing up in a different culture. Yeah. And so it's very easy for me to sort of accept. And so, as I said before, for us Kenyans, it's acceptance. Now imagine if as Kenyans, we were actually keen to find out, how is Congo? What do you people eat in Congo? What is your language?
Ideally, that's how it should be.
Exactly. What kind of music do you enjoy? What kind of food do you enjoy? What kind of people are you? It's easy for then that child to grow up with the confidence of knowing I am a Congolese and I'm Kenyan. It's actually a great thing for me to be both and not one. So, as I said, it's a culture shift. It's a mind shift for Kenyans that we need to begin thinking refugees are an amazing resource. You can learn about Congo without ever having to go to Congo. You can listen to Congolese music. we've listened to Congolese music. We don't know what it means. We enjoy it. Congolese food, Congolese clothing. We can enjoy a whole new world just by being here, instead of stigmatizing refugees and throwing them away and ignoring them, which is what we've been doing for a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a really good place to end. Thank you very much, Pauline. And of course, for welcoming us here. I want to say your lovely home, which is to them, it is home. Thank you so much. Well, that's all we had for you here on Morning Prime. I hope you've learned a thing or two about refugees and the challenges that they face. Remember, it can happen to anyone. So be your brother's keeper. I'm Ashley Mazuri.